Councillor Penrose.
Yeah, I just want to say, Madam Chair, that when we come together from 8 councils into one, and coming from PDC days, we knew what we were facing in regards to IT,
Yes,
like a number of our TLAs were, and we're more than happy to put that onto the new Auckland Council, gratefully, because we knew the costs were going to be tenfold. And as we all know around this table, that IT is a moving feast. It changes from one minute to the next. And then the next thing is, you know, in my role with the regulatory and bylaw stuff, but more in particular the regulatory, if we want cost savings and efficiencies across this organisation, whether you're in Te Hana in the north or Belmont, Pokoko in the south, and people want to walk into service centres and do their building consents, resource consents or planning or whatever, animal management, whatever, health and environmental, a lot, we've got to be on one platform. So, you know, that's the reality of it.
And I remember having this debate when we were going to renew in Rodney, and
I can't wait.
And we couldn't find out, there wasn't another council in Auckland that had the same sort of thing, and that was the problem when we were trying to renew. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being a lifelong Democrat, I always like to think that the elected members and the governing body is a superior decision maker than any board of directors in a CCO. And while I certainly welcome the report, I think we have to be realistic about what has happened and don't rewrite history, because if we do, then we won't learn anything. The fact of the matter is a mistake was made, a fundamental mistake was made at the outset and even before the establishment of the Auckland Council. It was grievously wrong. Advice from good public servants who proposed an alternative, a much more economic approach, was ruined because they gave the wrong advice. Their advice is what Auckland Transport carried out, and that was to adopt the Auckland Regional Council IT system, spend a modest amount of money on it, and it works better than our billion-dollar one, so much so that even ATEED has joined the Auckland Transport IT system rather than participate in our one. These are the facts.
It's not right. It's not correct, Councillor Lee. However, never mind.
Oh, hang on. Madam Chair, look, I really, this is the day to clear it.
Well,
you know, so
you have to listen.
And so at this point in time, Sue's got the baton, and so Councillor Mike is raising a continuing concern, and you know, my view is that this day basically gives us a bit of a ground zero. You know, simple stuff to understand, some fairly clear numbers around it, and if there are any issues that remain outstanding as to how we got here, then let's address them today. And I think Sue's by and large got a reasonably good enough brief around it to do that, or Stephen in his role.
Look, I think through you, Chair, look, the issue with what happened at the ATA, what advice there was, who decided what, you know, Sue Tyndall and I were not part of that. We don't know what the substance of that is, and you know, my advice is, what's the point in raking over it? Sue and I are not trying to rewrite history. We're explaining exactly where we are in the cycle of transformation of the back room. The experts, if they're to be believed, said it will take you 8 years to do this. It's the biggest corporate merger ever undertaken in New Zealand, and the back room will be the hardest when they looked at the map of all the systems. And we are well past the point of no return on Nucor, and we have arrested it, and we've got it under control, both scope, timing and budget. And interestingly, the fiscal envelope has not changed. The timing of the cash movements in that envelope have, and Sue has now grabbed the thing by the scruff of the neck, and we are going to change its shape because we're close enough to implementing Nucor that we now can right-size the business for the next 5-year window. So we're doing that thanks to Sue and Dean and Patricia. So there are 3 ELT members who have been labouring away at this to share the load internally, and we are now in the position where we're really clear about where we're going, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and we will deliver you reduced annual budgets at the end of the implementation phase, and we will achieve some of those savings pretty quickly. Look, a really important number just to keep in mind is that the ATA thought there were 2,100 servers in Auckland to be merged. In actual fact, there were 2,900 when they actually went round and turned them all off. And they are all in one single data centre now, a modern data centre. That is, you know, we just, as lay people, it is hard to comprehend what has already been achieved in IT, in the back room, and there's more to go. There's more to go. Yeah. So look, we're happy with where we are. We think we've got a responsible set of budgets, and we're aiming to reduce those annual costs over time, even though the organisation in the city and the region is growing at 3% per annum.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chief Executive and Ms Tyndall for the intro on this. And yeah, you're right. And as the Mayor said, this is an almighty complex, and I struggle to get my head around it. So that's why we are relying on you. And then you're relying on other people, and that's probably where I want to track. And this is, I want some assurance that those that we are engaging, we are testing and peer reviewing, because this is it's a specialist area. And so from the community, I hear things like, just like you hear about transport on roading, you're getting fleeced on this, you know, you're not procuring properly, and you probably know that usual story. So how do we, the people that you are engaging in this very specialist area of our business, how do we ensure that they are the very best people at their task? And because they're engaged to do one thing and then it blows out to be another, it becomes bigger, invariably these things do, and this one has, how do we keep checking that we've got the right people and that they are pricing their services reasonably? Is there some kind of process that you have in place that you need to tell us about, or can tell us about, that keeps checking on you know, the cost of services?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll respond to Councillor Darby's questions. Firstly, we have engaged EY to work alongside us to do this work, and I mentioned in my comments they are our independent quality assurance partner alongside Nucor, so that is right and appropriate because we need to make sure whatever we're doing does not impact Nucor, as I said. We also have a parallel process that we, with respect to your second question around, specifically around procurement, the group strategic procurement work that Sarah Hay and I are leading across the council family, of which we have monthly steering group meetings involving the CFOs across the group, Sarah, and also the procurement leads in AT and Watercare. Sarah provides regular updates of that work across, and the ICT is one of the key categories in that work. Sarah provides updates of that work to Councillor Quacks's Tenders and Procurement Committee, and also there are reports periodically to this committee. We do monitor it very closely. Also within the body of the report, you would note also specific comment that this work across IT will be council-led. We will lead it. There will be a person reporting to me to lead that work. EY will provide support to us in as much as we need to test what we're doing as we progress through it and make sure that we are delivering the expected outcomes.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
Yeah, I can appreciate that that we may not be that expert across IT and communications and so on. Having said that, there are quite a few people out there in the community, and obviously people involved with companies and so on that are. What I'm mindful of is that what we're doing is obviously going to make for a more efficient organisation as far as we're concerned as councillors. But obviously, we're a civic function, and much of it is around the interaction we have with the public generally in terms of how they can interrogate information and understand what we're doing. I'd certainly like to see a much more open and transparent process that we've got around this. I mean, obviously, we could have gone for, open sourced software and the like. We could have done things a different way, which is a way that, some cities are doing things. I still don't have a very clear idea of what we're going to end up with in terms of the public face of all this, in terms of how people out there are going to be able to engage with us. And that's a concern that I've got, and I'd suggest that the public at large don't really have much idea. One of the general concerns that I've got, if you look at other cities that are really smart, you can go into their control centre or the like, and everything's networked, so you can see where the sewage is at, and the sewage and the civil defence is at, and the water is at, and the transport is at, and even the crime, and a whole bundle of things that aren't networked into our sort of facilities. So that's the sort of smart city model that a number of cities have. I don't know what the context is of just how this fits and how it's moving towards that, and I know that that's the sort of question that some people out there would like to know. Obviously, there are a lot of things that you can do in the GIS space in terms of the way you map the city, in terms of how data is available so that people can use it. And I guess where I'm coming from is there's a huge amount that we can gain from collaborative effort, and I don't see enough of that on the part of our city. I'd invite a response from you, Sue.
Well, councillor, I mean, I think we covered. Okay.
I'll do a little short one, through Chair.
Watercare, I mean,
Look, smart cities and all the wonderful things that might come from that is, it's a step that we're not quite ready to take yet, because we'd like to get one basic software package that accurately calculates the rates and sends the right notice to the property owner so that we can be funded. Smart cities is just a little way down the track for us, councillor.
Okay, well, I guess my overall concern is that those cities that are smart haven't done it by accident. They've actually had a vision of what they want, and the way that they've designed their software, their whole engagement has been geared towards that. So I just have a concern that we may be dealing with things in just an incremental, bit of an ad hoc way. Obviously, we want to deal with things internally, but that external interface is really important, and other cities place a huge emphasis around that.
Councillor Walker, other cities weren't amalgamated 5 years ago.
Well, excuse me, there are lots of examples of cities that have been, Madam Chair. I can rattle some off if you want.
No.
Oh, come on. I want to have a short list.
I can assure you, Madam Chair, that we are not approaching this in an ad hoc manner. It is not that.
Oh dear. Councillor Wood.
Well, I just want to take up Councillor Wayne Walker's suggestion that we kind of give them some examples, because if you actually go out to Watercare, they've got a very good control room. They can tell you everything that's happening about their systems from out of their control room, and that's an interesting little exercise. Go down to Auckland Transport. They've got a, what do they call it, ATOM or ATAC system, which I think that's state of the art, and they've upgraded. They started off over at the Harbour Bridge about 15 years ago, and it's going to Smiles. I understand most of it's now down the bottom at the HSBC building. So I think that we've done remarkably well in relation to our IT systems since this council's came into being, because, if you look at this, and this report says that the council inherited 5,000 legacy IS systems from the former councils. A large number of the IS systems of varying conditions and state presented a challenge in terms of functionality, relevance and cost to maintain. So changes to the IS environment were initiated by ATA and hand it to the newly formed council to complete. And I think we got a hospital pass at that stage, in that we were given kind of indications as to how this was going to happen, and I think, you know, the previous chief executive probably thought that it was going to happen quicker because he probably didn't realise the magnitude of the situation. But, you know, it was said 73 million new core will be in place. That was in the last term of council. So, you know, I think councillors who are around the table then and now realise that we've got a real issue that hasn't been easy to resolve. And I think, you know, once it came apparent that the council had a problem, and we talked to the chief executive and the senior officer, Mr. Kimpton had it to start with, that was a major problem that they had to wrestle with, and I think they've done a superb job.
Was
in,
that
in moving this forward? No, I'm talking, Councillor.
I just thought it was a
And
question you might be
I think
addressing
they've
me.
done a superb job. So I think that, you know, the outlook, and I actually, after we had the workshop, I went back to Ms. Tyndall and said, you know, I thought you said this is all going to happen within the parameters of the 2012-22 budgets, 10-year budgets, and she came back and confirmed that that was what the situation was. Told me what the figures were. So I don't think, you know, we can say that this is not a cost blowout in the true sense of it, because it's being done within the parameters. So I hope that those figures that were given to us by the Chief Financial Officer will, you know, be put online or be put out there somewhere so people can see what the true facts of the matter are. And I think it's really good that the Chief Financial Officer's decided that she will obviously be leading the role of Chief Information Officer for the immediate future, and would be employing someone to work under her tutelage so that she can keep a very tight rein on what's happening in the system. So I think from where we were probably 2 years ago, around about 2 years ago or more, to where we are now, we've made huge progress. And I think the officers have got to be commended for the way they have done this work and what's been achieved. So I think it's a real good outcome anyway. Thank you.